testimony I'm going to share has taught me the significance of beauty for ashes, joy for mourning. Isaiah 61:3 says, "And provide for those who grieve in Zion to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor." In late June 2007, I was told that I was losing twins. One had already passed, the other I was told needed to be taken by DNC. Labs were done to confirm my HCG levels were going down to show me that the baby who was still inside of my wombs, in fact, had no heartbeat. I was left with just one, no longer two. The one left, I was told, wouldn't have survived anyway and didn't appear to be compatible with life. I went home contemplating all these things, and as I was making dinner that evening, I recall very specifically turning to mark something on my calendar. That's when I heard the Lord say, "This baby will live, and her name will be Miriam Selah. She will worship my name." And that night, I went to the hospital. And the hospital who had originally seen me when Julia passed, the doctor who had told me that there was no chance of Miriam's survival, he had been at a different hospital the first time. And when I went back, he was moonlighting at this other place. And he told me that it's normal to be in shock, and that and he didn't want to run the test again. I still refused to have a procedure done without him doing that. So when they came back into the room after doing the ultrasound again, he came in along with other nurses, and they said to me, "This is a miracle. I don't know what to tell you. Your baby is surviving." And I was sent home with Miriam. I'm gonna stop reading and just talk. So a couple years later, Miriam comes down the stairs and she says, "Mama, I had a dream last night, and I met my sister Julia in the dream. She had no idea she had a twin. She had no idea this baby's name, and the baby's name was Julia." So Miriam met her sister in a dream that night, and then 5 years later, Miriam came to me crying and said, "Mom, I want to live with Julia and Jesus someday. How do I live for Jesus?" And that night, she gave her life to the Lord. So her sister, who had been in my womb, and that was the only contact they had together aside from this dream, was what led Miriam to a real relationship with Jesus that she still has today. So then, and then there was another one that took place. And most recently, I've experienced healing from this one. I had a lot of trauma surrounding it and had suppressed all the feelings that I just didn't want to face any of it. So this one felt different. I was unable to let go of the pain and grief to the point I stuffed the feelings it would bring up. In 2011, I was alone in my home with my other children when we experienced a traumatic loss. The people who most were supposed to be there, in my opinion, said, "I don't care, I'm working, clean it up." Emotionally and physically, I was completely alone and ashamed. I buried it and only could remember the images of my children trying to comfort their mother, a responsibility that was not theirs. I was ashamed, sad, alone, and all the best intended people told me how Sophia is wearing her wings. People didn't understand how to comfort the grieving. I didn't want to hear that Sophia was wearing her wings. And so I just kind of left it like that. The day of her birth was July 19th, 2011. This year, for the first time, I allowed myself to grieve, and for the first time, I felt Jesus show me where he was. The things that came up is another story, but I can confidently say that this is another example of beauty for ashes, and of the testimony that Jesus is constantly faithful through every pain, trial, and uncertainty. A seed that was in my womb that seemed lost became the seed that displayed God's splendor. And that is my testimony of God's faithfulness and constant redemption in my life.